Hello, and welcome to Planet Montgomery, the show that brings you the latest news about the Montgomery County Planning Department. I'm your host, Michael Brown. We have a great show lined up for you, recapping some of Montgomery Planning's great projects and events. We'll go on a tour of Kensington with the Planning Board, give you the highlights of our recent Winter Speaker Series, and present the latest on the Bicycle Master Plan. All this and more in this edition of Planet Montgomery. The Montgomery County Planning Board has been out and about in the community lately. It's all part of an effort to get board members out from behind the dais and into neighborhoods in the county. The board toured the town of Kensington last winter to see how some of their planning approvals have come to life. We were there to cover the event, and here's the story.
There was a lot of community input to this parking lot. A few people.
Well, today we are having a tour for the Montgomery County Planning Board and Senior Planning and Park staff of the town of Kensington. And we are seeing all aspects of the town, from the historic areas to the wonderful new environmentally sensitive parking lot that the town's constructed near the Mark Rail Station, to all the open space around the Warner property, which is right at the heart of downtown historic Kensington. And we're going to be looking at the commercial areas and really just getting an overview of this very special place.
Well, usually when we come into a community, it's because there's thought to be some significant redevelopment potential. People are sometimes anxious about what it means that we're looking at a plan and the possibility of change. So we want to make sure that we can come to check in with communities even when there's no planning activity that's underway or any redevelopment activity, so we can make sure that we're in touch with what people are thinking, what's going on, and do our jobs better outside of the context of having to come in and look at a very specific land area that is potentially going to be redeveloped in the near future.
When you're working on a project, you don't really get to see what all the parts of the town or what goes on or what really makes up the plan all the time. We do a tour, but it's kind of like a windshield type tour. But this has given us an opportunity to really see some of the great things that exist in Kensington.
Nice to have them back, as I said, to refresh what we're expecting here. And we are anticipating some redevelopment plans, and so it's good to have them back and continue to take interest in the town. The master plan really is going to help the economic engine of the town. Kensington's very unique in that it still has the original railroad running through it, the historic aspect, but also it has a lot of newer homes, younger families are moving in, and there's a lot of energy, and we're eager to get moving on redevelopment and revitalization.
From this perspective, being able to do the walking tour piece and actually going into some of the historic residents has been really eye-opening. It's really beautiful, but to see it from the ground versus from the dais when you're making a decision and just seeing maps and plans has been really nice.
We really appreciate the town of Kensington. Pete Fosselman and the staff from the town's government have been fantastic, and it's great to be out here and just bumping into people on the street, getting to talk to them and see their community is really a lot of fun.
Montgomery Planning's Winter Speaker Series has been a huge success, drawing crowds to 3 evening sessions that ended in March. The focus was on transportation alternatives, and the title of the series tells it all: Smart Moves, New Ideas About Bikes, Cars, and Transit. The speakers address everything from using big data and new tools to plan transportation systems to bicycling trends in the Netherlands. The session sparked great discussions about transportation planning for the future, and we have the full recap right here.
I was really glad that we could bring some of the best minds in transportation planning to Montgomery County. Of course, Nat and Jennifer are locals, or in Nat's case used to be local, and he still comes to town now and then, but these are all world-class transportation experts.
I think everyone in the region knows how much of an impact that the investment in Metro had, and there have been a lot of efforts to try and get the same kind of impacts just with surface transit. We all know that Metro Rail is too expensive to really affordably build, so we're looking at surface. That's difficult. A lot of projects have been sort of slowing down or halting, and so part of transition means getting those projects going. Part of it means getting the impacts and the transition in the region that we've seen before that transit can provide.
And I'm really honored to be here tonight to talk to you.
Netherlands did not become bike friendly overnight. It takes a lot of sustained work to make it happen. And in the early years, by default, you're going to have a disconnected system. It's going to take time to build that connectivity throughout the county. And but bit by bit, I think it'll get better.
It's important to keep in mind what level of service is actually measured. So
the best transportation plan is a good land use plan. Transportation and land use are the same thing, and unless they're planned together and pointed towards the same vision and the same goals, you're going to end up with a lot of conflict.
It was really good. They're highly substantive, but really right on point to some big issues that I've been struggling with, and helped me a lot with thinking about some of the biggest challenges that this county's facing in terms of transportation and transit issues.
I think that we'd like to take a little bit of credit for inviting them, but I think it wasn't a hard sell because they recognize that what we're doing here in Montgomery County is really important and exciting, that we're trying to figure out how to build from a foundation that was oriented around one pattern of land use and transportation infrastructure to something that has to be very different in the future. And that's the major challenge in transportation and land use planning, how to prepare the suburbs for the next 50 years.
The White Flint 2 sector plan has been in full swing since last July, and the team has been holding community meetings and working with property owners as they craft recommendations for this area in between Pike and Rose and the city of Rockville. Our cameras were at a recent property owners forum where planners welcomed community feedback on the future of White Flint 2 over the next 15 to 20 years.
Properties within the boundary of the White Flint 2 area.
Tonight's meeting was really for the public to hear from property owners and other landowners of what they're thinking of, and then also to hear from the other civic associations and homeowners associations in terms of their concerns.
Well, I think what I heard tonight were some real concerns about how can we allow more development when there's such a shortage of school capacity. But I also was excited to hear that there are some plans for some new residential development in areas that would really benefit from seeing some new homes. And of course it would also enable us to increase our supply of moderately priced housing units, so that would be good.
Two things came out of the meeting tonight. One is that we continue to hear a major concern about schools and the impact on schools from new development. There's an existing capacity problem in the school system already, particularly in the WJ cluster. And the other thing that came out of the meeting tonight is that it's very clear that the various landowners, the development community don't have any near-term plans to develop their properties. They've got some ideas for long-term development, but there's nothing imminent here as far as we can tell so far.
Well, as representatives of owners of several large shopping centers, we're looking for zoning flexibility. We're looking for the ability to take advantage of some new trends that we see in this area. Obviously, the proximity to Metro and the ability to diversify some of the centers that have historically just focused on auto-oriented retail. We're looking to introduce some new things into those areas. So we're looking for the ability to be flexible and grow with the market in this area.
I want it to be walkable, transit-oriented, really creating a sense of place. And this becomes basically the town center of Montgomery County.
We're still fairly early in the game, but we've got a good team working on this, and there's a great deal of community interest, which is really good in that it helps us do our job better, helps us fully understand what all the different issues are, and we're going to continue working with the community, but at this point all I can say is so far so good.
Our design workshops for master plans allows the community an opportunity to draw, give comments, and collaborate with planners to come up with new ideas for a specific area. That's exactly what happened at the recent Mark Rail Communities Design Workshops held in March at the Up County Regional Services Center in Germantown. Planners hosted 4 days of meetings to capture concepts from the community for improving the areas around the MARC stations in Boyds and Germantown. We were there to cover the event. Here's a recap.
This will serve as a basis for the recommendations that go into the plan. So we're establishing a future vision for both Boyds and Germantown, and then during the next week. And then from there, massage it and make it better. And then over the period of the course of the next few months, develop recommendations that will go into the master plan.
Roberto and Leslie have been wonderful in giving information to the Boyds Civic Association along the way. They have come multiple times to present ideas representing the county. So that's been very helpful. And as you can see, half of the group here is actually, at least half of the group is from the Boyds community. We're a very active community, and we take this kind of thing very seriously.
The hope is that by the end, we'll present the various alternatives and have a question and answer session with the community and get feedback from them to see if we've met their goals and objectives.
Connectivity, separated bike lanes, and bicycle parking. These are just some of the issues planners working on the Bicycle Master Plan have been working on for the past year. Now, the team has launched an online map showing the amount of stress that bicyclists experience when riding in the county. Here's more about why this matters for getting folks to use two wheels and leave their cars behind.
We put together a so-called bicycle stress map, which identifies the different stress levels that people experience when they're riding on roads and trails in Montgomery County. Bicycle stress is the amount of stress that cyclists experience when they're riding. It's important because different groups of people are tolerant of different stress levels. High stress tolerating folks, people that will ride on roads like Georgia Avenue, maybe represent 5 to 10% of the population, but the majority of the population will bicycle on low stress roads such as residential streets or on trails or shared use paths on the side of the road.
So one of the purposes of the map is to show the bicycling network that's available to people that tolerate different traffic stress levels. So here, focused on the Silver Spring area, you see the high stress network. As you click through to lower stress levels, you see that the network available to the group gradually gets reduced until you get to the network that is available for most adults and then the very low stress network that is available to children, and it's really focused on trails, low speed, low volume connections in the neighborhoods, and a few trails through commercial areas. You can also click on the metro stations and look at some connectivity analysis. So if you click on, for example, the Glenmont metro station, what you see here is a map that shows the area available to different stress levels. So blue lines represent areas that are low stress roads for bicycling. Red lines represent streets that are high stress, like Lay Hill Road, Georgia Avenue, Randolph Road. The blue areas are those areas that are connected to the metro station on a very low stress network, and the red represents areas where there are gaps in the low stress network. So this is one of the good metro stations. Glenmont, over 50% of the dwelling units within the metro station area can get to the Glenmont metro station completely on a low stress network. In contrast, you can look at the Silver Spring network and see by clicking on the map that only a very small area around the metro station can be reached on a very low stress bike network.
That's it for this edition of Planet Montgomery. Be sure to go online to look at our great projects and plans at montgomeryplanning.org. Connect with us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm your host, Michael Brown, and until next time, we'll be planning Montgomery.